Good evening. Welcome again to Boro Fan TV and the Monday Night Show with me, James Hutchinson. Joining me this week are Jacob Waters, and making his debut is Liam McDermott. Welcome, boys.
Evening.
Great to see you both, lads. Another busy show ahead of us tonight, Boro fans. Off the pitch activity, things have really ramped up in the last 7 days in the transfer market with incomings and outgoings. Boro fans, are you happy with Boro's transfer dealings so far in this transfer window? And on the pitch, we saw a game which will be talked about for years on Saturday, or certainly the final 10 minutes will be, as Boro defeated Reading and made it 6 wins out the last 7 games. We're also going to preview next Monday's match, another big game at the top of the table where Boro take on high-flying Blackburn Rovers in a match which could have huge implications on the playoff picture and possibly the top 2 come the end of the season. So as always, Boro fans, get involved. It's your show. Let us know what you think. We always love to hear from you here on the Monday Night Show. So, Jacob, great to see you again, buddy. Firstly, we'll deal with off-the-pitch matters first. Before we get on the transfer chat, we found out last week that we've got Man United in the 4th round of the FA Cup. And the ticket details were released. What did you make of what we've got from Man United and what we're having to pay for those tickets?
How much?
A lot. Go on. And the rest.
I don't know. Do you know, they're exposing the lads in the northeast or something? I mean, I read that Arsenal charged a tenner. That's what I read. And United, wasn't it their home games are 15 quid less? Am I correct in saying that? I read something somewhere.
They can't charge more than £30 for an away ticket in the Premier League.
I don't know. It's no good, really, is it? I mean, you can't cook that any other way. But we're behind our team, so we'll fill it out. We'll sell we'll sell the 9,000. But you do feel a bit hard done by. But you feel hard done by across the board by Sky moving things about, and money talks and power talks, and this is the way of the game. But one thing I'm 100% sure of is we will sell those tickets out. Most of them will be sold by. What is it? January the 21st, when the priority points then goes in general sale. But it's extortionate, and they're extorting the fans. But it is what it is. That's unfortunately what football does a lot of the time.
Yeah, Andrew Hill's in agreement with you there, Jacob. He's saying the prices are ridiculous. I mean, yeah, I know you're on your way there as well, Liam. And anything you want to add to what Jacob said there?
No, I think spot on. I think it is what it is, but they know what they're doing, don't they? At the end of the day, they're exploiting us because they know that we'll take the tickets and Boro between a rock and a hard place, aren't they? Because we're going to take the 9,000 because we're going to sell them. It could be 46 quid, it could be 49 quid. They could probably get away with, So it isn't right. But I think until we start getting some rules around it, clubs are always going to take the mickey and charge what they think they can get away with. I was reading, not that I have much sympathy with Leeds United, get that on record. But I was reading, things like where they're getting charged, I don't know, £5 a pint or something before a match, and then the same ground's charging £3 to the next club. Yeah. It's just crackers, it's outrageous, really. Yeah. If it was any other club, not Leeds, I'd be really upset by it, but it's what it is. But yeah, no, you're right. It's unfortunately it's the way it is, isn't it? And like you said, Jacob, we're going to sell out. I bought a ticket, so I can't complain about it. But I suppose the only way to stop it is we all stop buying tickets. But we kind of know that, support the club, don't they?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're in there. Anyway, we'll get on to transfer stuff, lads. And Liam, first through the door last week was Folarin Balogun. What do you anticipate him bringing to the Boro squad?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think definitely we needed forwards who fit the style of play. There's no doubt about that. Big Uchi, for all his pros, and he is talented, I think, on his feet in a way that people don't give him credit. He's a tidy footballer at times, despite being a bit gangly and lanky. But we do need those strikers that Wilder wants to play with in the system he plays in, and he's obviously should be a good fit. And we've heard great things about him, haven't we? And Arsenal certainly hold him in high regard, offered him a contract. They've thought long and hard about where he goes. We saw a little glimpse of him, didn't we, in the match? But to be fair, hard to gauge anything from that. Probably isn't 100% match sharp as well. But yeah, I'm quite excited by it. I'm always a bit sceptical when people come with a big reputation and all that, and they're going to change the world. But I hope he does well. Now, I'm confident we'll use him in the way that, like, Tony Pulis never used Jack Harrison and players like that. Yeah. He's clearly going to come in for a reason. He's going to get used, and I'm all for that. I'd be much more sceptical if Warnock or someone was here and he came, and then you'd be thinking, well, actually, is he just going to come and sit on the bench for 3 months and be a waste of time? Yeah. But now I look forward to watching him. He seems definitely gifted. And I know Maddo was on about it after the match, watching him in the warm down, saying he was outstanding technically. So hopefully he can bring some in, much needed bit of skill and composure up front alongside Sporra. So looking forward to it.
Good stuff. Yeah, Damon LaRoche, hope you're well, Damon. He said Balogun will provide pace up top. Connolly was decent with a few efforts, and hopefully Riley McGree will be a solid midfielder. That's your Q&A now, Jacob. Riley McGree. A bit of a battle developed over the course of last week between ourselves and Glasgow Celtic. Why do you think we won that chase in the end? Do you think it was purely down to money, or do you think there's more to it than that, Jacob? First and foremost, they are the saltiest fans that I've ever communicated with over Twitter. I've never ever. They were doing pictures of him, and he's doing that with money in his hands. Oh, I spent a couple of hours on my sofa, back and forth, just getting chewed by them. But I think the thing is with Middlesbrough is we've got a project, and it's an exciting project to be part of. You can see that with the director of football, with the style of football, with the manager. And we are developing a system to get us into the Premier League. Now, for me, the Premier League is far more exciting than the Scottish Premier League. So I think as a player and as an aspiring player to get to the pinnacle of your career, you want to be in a side that is wanting to challenge to get into those Premier League positions. So I think across the board, if everything had been equal, transfer fee, wages, etc., I don't know if there's any Celtic fans going to tune in and say you're having a laugh, mate, but I would have thought he'd have picked Middlesbrough. Even if you just look at it purely on the managerial level, we've got a really talented manager at the helm. I've seen something on Twitter today where someone said that, Rafa's been sacked at Everton, Chris Wilder. I was like, not shaking. No, don't leave us. But in short, we're an attractive club now. You can see that by the transfers that we've brought in, and people can have their own views on the Scottish Premier League. But my views on it is there's a few clubs involved in it being towards the top, and of course they're always going to have European football and command a big crowd, and they have a certain level of money, but not too much pulling power. But I don't know. As an aspiring footballer, perhaps I'd want to go to. Aspiring Premier League footballer, perhaps I'd want to go to a side that is challenging at the top end of the champ. Yeah, and I don't think you're being disrespectful or anything there, Jacob, because I think if you look at the last few years, players that have really done it at Celtic, more so maybe, but Rangers now, because Rangers are up at the top as well in Scotland. But you've had the likes of Van Dijk. They've all ended up moving down south of the border because that's where the money is, isn't it, Liam? And they obviously want the greater exposure that comes with playing in the Premier League as well. Yeah, I totally agree. And tongue in cheek, just because you play in front of a big crowd doesn't mean you're a big club, does it? I mean, see Newcastle United as an example of that. But we'll park that for a second. But yeah, I'm afraid I have sympathy with Celtic because I get where they're coming from. They are a big club, if you like. But at the end of the day, to your point, money and exposure talks, doesn't it? And you see it with managers and things, don't you? The clubs, they tend to go, no disrespect to Aston Villa, Gerrard hasn't gone out of Celtic and gone straight to a top 4 side in the Premier League, has he? He's gone to a mid-table, and that's a reflection of the weight you put on success in Scotland, because you are also, it's a different ball game up there, isn't it? It's different kind of fish, it's different. And Middlesbrough can probably outspend Celtic in the transfer market in a good year, certainly when we're in the Premier League. So it doesn't surprise me one bit, and I look forward to seeing him because again he's another player that comes with a lot of expectation, doesn't he? I think, and clearly we've seen something in him. And if you go by the YouTube clips and bits and bobs, he looks pretty good, doesn't he? Pretty decent. That scorpion kick or whatever he scored in the A League or whatever. And the other thing I was going to say there as well, Liam, about transfers, we've had obviously Connolly come in. There's been Boyd Munce. There's other players being linked as well. The transfer policy and the type of players that are coming in seems very different. If you look back even just 12 months ago when you had Mendes Lang, Cabano, players like that were coming in last year, it's changed dramatically in 12 months, hasn't it? And we've been desperate for it, to be honest, because how many years have we had a completely disjointed transfer policy? We chuck everything, we chuck the bath out with the manager, don't we, and start again. And that's why we haven't had as much success as we should have had, because we just keep
lurching from one manager to the next, a completely different playing style. You've got to change all the coaching staff. They've got to change all the players, spend a load of money. And it's nice now. It's clear that Kieran Scott and Chris Wilder, they'll have the differences of opinion, but they're on the same page, aren't they, with the type of player they want. It's clear, we all know as fans what the system is. We know how we play. We know what our strengths are. And that, to me, it's a breath of fresh air, because we've been wanting that for years. Too many matches we've attended where you're just thinking, I don't actually know what we're trying to do here. I don't know what the system is. I don't know why, But so it's great, and I'm really probably more confident in this manager than I have been since probably Karanka, who had a lot of faults, but you knew what you got with him. You knew what his system was. You had 2 players for every position. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's great. Some great signs.
Yeah. And another one that came in last week, Jacob, finally confirmed after a short-term deal, Neil Taylor, and that was a great thing to see him sign on for another 6 months or so, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that went under the radar a bit in terms of importance. Arguably, last game he wasn't as good as he was the 2 games previous in terms of bombing forward, but that might have been victim of Reading sitting in and parking the bus and counter-attacking. But I think the 2 games prior to that, he was a real live wire, and you wouldn't have believed he's never scored before.
Yeah.
He never. Is it? I don't know if it's. I think he might have never got a professional goal in his career. Right? It's definitely in the Premiership. I don't know if he's also not scored in the Championship too. But you wouldn't have believed that watching him bomb down at the Riverside. And I mean, did he hit the post, or the keeper made a good save, or something like that? But anyway, I think that is a brilliant signing. He brings experience. He's been there before. He's an international player. He's very, very professional. He talks well. He's very calm and collected when he did the interview. And I think that went under the radar a bit in terms of importance. And maybe as well, it'll give Boro a little kick up the arse too to progress. I mean, I'm a fan of Bowler. There's no question of him, but he probably needs that bit more of someone behind him saying, I'll take your position here. Because the fact of the matter is, it's Taylor's now. Bowler's got to take it back when he's fit. So I like that dynamic, and I think he's a brilliant signing.
Yeah, Danny Rosa, and we've got Patrick Wheatley there also saying quality signing, Neil Taylor. Just another thing there, I was just going to mention to you, Jacob. People have also said about a goalkeeper. We need a goalkeeper. Still go along with that? Do you think? I know Chris Wilder said there might be another 2 coming in over the next 2 weeks of the transfer window. Is a goalkeeper still at the top of your priorities there, mate?
Well, I can read David Foster's comment here. And Randolph can't leave. Sack it. If we can't have Randolph, we don't want another one. If we could bring him back, though, he was something else. Well, it's a difficult one for me because I think Lumley's been great with his distribution and commanding the box the past few games. Now, I can't say I was a Lumley fan, and I'm still not swayed on it because I think that he spills quite a bit. He spilt one against Mansfield. Luke Daniels, for me, has never looked like he could be a number 1. Solbrim, I've not seen. Jury's out on that one for me. Like I almost feel like watching Lumley, he's got it in him, but he's also got a clanger in him. So I don't think if I'm just purely saying what I think we'll do in the market, I don't think we're going to bring a keeper in.
Right. Okay. Do you agree, Liam, or do you think? Because that potentially could be the difference between not making the playoffs or making the playoffs, or even, dare I say, a top 2 place, having a keeper that people maybe people just don't totally trust Joe Lumley at the minute, or Daniels, and they're just thinking we need a reliable, steady goalkeeper. We haven't got that at the minute.
Yeah, I think we do. I think a lot of lads I know sit around us, and you know as well, James, that we kind of said a few weeks ago. So it's probably the first thing on the list. Now, I agree he's come into a little bit of, he's been a bit more composed in the last couple of matches. Joe Lumley, he's an experienced player at this level, isn't he? He's played lots of games in the Championship, but I'm not convinced. I mean, I have a heart attack every time the ball goes near him, and in the system that Wilder plays, obviously the goalkeeper's got quite an important role, playing it out and distribution. I agree it's much better. But I get the feeling that we're only potentially a couple of weeks away from a couple of clangers. If we were going to a playoff final with him in goal, would I be confident he's not going to commit some horrendous mistake under pressure in the last 10 minutes? No, I'm not. And I know it's hard with goalkeepers. It's hard to find a good goalkeeper. It's obviously got to be an improvement, hasn't it, on Joe Lumley? And he's not a terrible keeper. So back to your point, Jake, I suppose it needs to be somebody who improves on where we are. So we're not just going to sign someone for the sake of signing him, but I think we do need to strengthen. Now, who we're going to get, I don't know. But Chris Wilder knows far better than I do, and hopefully we've got a scouting team now that are looking at that. But I definitely not 100% confident. Yeah, definitely want that area strengthened if we can.
Do you think he will? Like, we want it, but do you think he will do that? Do you think we're going to do that bit of business?
I think so, because the club are saying there's another two signings he wants to do, 2 or 3 signings. So I think definitely, if he can, if the right player's available. I think it's only a question of he'll have someone in mind he wants, and then a second choice, and it's whether it comes off. But I can't see who else it could be when he's talking about 2 or 3 key players he's looking for before the end of the window. Maybe if you don't include a goalkeeper, where else do you need 3 players?
Yeah. I would agree. I would think maybe a centre half and a keeper is what he's probably looking at now, but time will tell. Anyway, Jacob, I mean, redress the balance. Obviously, we've had people coming in, so obviously some have had to go out. Anel Hernandez has gone to Birmingham, and as Liam mentioned at the top of the show as well, Ikpeazu's been made available for transfer. Marcus Brown, which might have surprised 1 or 2 people, and James Lee Saliki currently on African Cup of Nations duty. Any arguments with those 4 names?
No. I like Onel. I think he's tricky, and I wouldn't like to see him on the team sheet against us. Victim of formation. James Lee Saliki, I don't know what anyone else thinks, but even watching him warm up, he just doesn't seem that involved. Like, it doesn't seem like his heart's ever been in it. And of course, I'm not on the training pitch, so I don't know. But he didn't really. Wilder didn't have a glowing reference for him, did he? When he was doing the press conference, he talked about the others, and then he kind of mentioned James Lee Saliki. So him, not surprised with it all. Onel, Ikpeazu, a bit of like, it's a sour one, that, because I really like him, and I think that he does bring something to the team, but not in the formation that we're going to be playing 90% of the time. So you can't really keep someone who, in my opinion, is a decent championship striker who is not going to fit the formation 90% of the time. It's not fair on him. It's not fair on his career. So, yeah, he probably needs to walk as well. And who was the last one you mentioned?
Marcus Brown.
That's a bit of a potluck for whoever takes him on, though, obviously, with 2 horrific injuries. I heard Sheffield United are going for him. And to be honest, I was very, very surprised. I didn't think he'd get another offer from Championship. I thought it'd be League One, perhaps go back to Oxford, because you are taking a risk with him. He's built back up to fitness over. How long has he been injured in total? About 18 months?
January. He's been out over a year now.
There you go. So it's a bit of a potluck with him. But to be fair, I like him. I like his presence on social media. He seems quite a jovial character. And when he came back from injury, he put literally a couple of decent performances in under Warnock.
Yeah,
as a striker, and then obviously he's knee jarred again. So the way I feel about Marcus Brown, I just wish him the best wherever he goes, whatever happens. He needs to leave because he won't fit in the system. He's never going to get a game over the strikers that we have in place, and he's not actually as an orthodox striker anyway, or even one of the 2. Yeah. So I just really wish him well. I hope that things come into place for him, because I feel like he deserves it. He got a decent move from Oxford into the Championship, and then he's been tainted by these injuries. I hope he can eventually make it in the Championship, and you never know. He looks quite talented, maybe beyond.
Yeah, no, fair points, mate. Lee Fisher's also mentioned they are thrown into the ring the name of Grant Hall. He said, I think Grant Hall could be transferred out. I can't see him getting back in the lineup. And John Jefferson on the Uche situation said there, Uche could have played a role going forward for us. Depends if he wants first team football, which I think most players do. They want the regular action, but a couple of injuries, and it could mean we're coming in. Liam, I'm going to throw this to you because I don't want to give it to Jacob because he might get a bit emotional about this. But have you got any fears about, in terms of outgoings, a big name going out, like possibly Payero, Tav? Have you got any fears about anything like that happening in the next 2 weeks? He's gone. He can't
he's had enough. Well, look, I take it as a positive, right? At least we're in the right. It's going to happen, isn't it? If you're a good side and you've got a good manager, you're going to start getting applauded. You're going to start getting a bit of attention. All I'd say is Boro have never been a club that has sold their prize assets halfway through a season. We've sold good players when we've had to. We've had to balance the books and Gibson Go and people like that, and Traore and things like that. But we're not going to fire sale. So I think you've got to ask yourself the question, is a Premier League side going to spend some serious money? Certainly not another Championship side, I don't think, but a Premier League side going to spend big money on a good Championship player. I can't see it happening at this moment in time. I think there's other fish to fry for them. It's a January transfer window. loads of other stuff going on, and Boro will, Gibson will put a marker down. I think the only one could go is obviously Jade Spence, but he's not with us anyway, is he? And I think if you're looking at 5 to 10 million for him, I'd take it.
Yeah,
because I don't believe when we signed him, if someone had said you could pay 10 million for him, we'd have thought we got value for money. But yeah, so I'm not particularly worried. If it comes along, I trust in Wilder and the management, if they've got enough time left to put it right and fill the gap. The danger is you get an 11th hour bid, but I suppose that's the same every window.
Yeah.
Tav's an interesting one. You could spend the whole show talking about him, couldn't you? But it's that whole, I don't know what it is about the bloke, but it's like chalk and cheese, isn't it? There's people who stand next to you and just absolutely, we had a guy behind us shouting for him to be subbed from about the 30th minute, I think. And then, and I think Wilder recognised that, didn't he? Came out and said, he is actually a good footballer, and almost saying, look, I'm doing well. I think I've got a bit of trust and confidence with the fan base, so just trust me on him. I know what I'm doing with him, and I do think he's a good player.
Yeah. No, it was quite telling that, wasn't it, Jacob? I know you forever banging the drum about Marcus Tavernier and what a good player he is. And there's no doubt he is a footballer in there, but as Liam said, I think it goes around the ground. He seems to be the one, and there was other people who'll get onto the Reading game in a minute that were having a difficult day on Saturday and struggling through the game, yet the one that seemed to be copping all the flack was Tavernier again.
Right. There's times where I understand it, but how can someone look at that Reading game and think he played poorly? Like if anyone played poorly, it was Crooks. Yeah. And yet he popped up with 2 bangers, but he played poorly. Yeah. Howson played all right. Tav played the best of the 3, in my opinion. I don't understand it. And but to be fair, the flack that he's taken, he needs to take probably about 20 or 30% of it, but not all of what he's taken. And I think Wilder's comments were interesting. Wilder said, I know a player when I see it. He is a good player. Yeah. And at the end of the day, he knows the score. We trusted him, right? Wilder at the wheel. But my crack, what I think about him. So I won't bore you going on for 5 or 10 minutes. But you're seeing in that game what he has to offer when his distribution's a little bit better. His passes weren't as off as they have been. His distribution was better. He's a very snappy. One thing we lacked, if you watched against Reading, most of it, because they parked the bus, is that either cutting pass or a progressive run through the line. Tav started to do that. He got it, and he got 10 yards further with it, with his burst. Like, he takes the ball and he kind of turns his body and he bursts a bit and he gets us that little bit further up. And yes, granted, his distribution recently hasn't been great. But looking at that Reading match, I'd like to know his stats, but his distribution was fine to me. Plus, he got an assist in. He whipped a few good crosses in. Granted, 1 free kick. It was funny. I was sat next to my son, Harry, and Harry's like, "Oh, he's on the free kick." I went, "You don't want to be shouting about that, mate. It's not a great." And he goes, "No, shut up. Watch this." And he hits the first man, and he looked at me and went like that. But apart from that, he was doing well. And one thing we've got to understand as well is the players don't have earmuffs. They know the crack. They know what people are saying about them to some degree, to the point where the manager's saying something. Tab is 21 or 22 years old. He's a young lad. If everyone's slagging him off all the time, what's he going to think when he walks onto that pitch and he receives the ball in front of 20,000 fans? And he might get tackled one time and everyone's like, oh, and want to throw him under the bus. It's ridiculous. He's young. He's tenacious. Look at the way he celebrates when we score. We need to get behind a young player like that. He's not someone who's been through the mill for 15 years and he's still plying his trade in the Championship. You can give a bit of stick to picking up a payday. He's not. He won't be on massive money. I know he got signed a new contract. He won't be on huge money. So we should, with someone who's been at the club that long and he's there flogging his pudding still and he clearly loves the club, get bloody behind him. Don't slag him off and look at the game he had and how he played and see that he can get to another level as well. Because I tell you, if he went this season, we'd miss him. And people would be saying soon enough, oh, I wish we had him back in there because he had that little bit of panaz, that little bit of Saz we need on the ball in that final. That gets said. There I go. 5 minutes I took on that.
No, you're right. You're right though. He takes a risk, and that's the thing. He takes a risk, and he gets punished for it. If you're that kind of player, you take a risk. You try and be ambitious with the pass. You try and take somebody on, and sometimes you're not going to pull it off every time, are you? But that's just the nature of that role. If you want somebody to be creative and not just pass it sideways all the time, that's going to happen.
Yeah, I just love it. Again, we're getting a mixed set of opinions on people when it comes to Tav, and he does divide opinion. But like you say, I think I would agree with John Moon there. People need to give him a break. because getting on his back isn't going to help him or the team, is it? So we'll leave it at that for this week. Before we go on to the Reading game, though, Liam, something we've talked about a fair bit recently and talking about finances and things like that. There was one or two whispers doing the rounds at the back end of last week about Boro and a couple of other clubs, Bristol City and Stoke City, being linked with facing financial fair play penalties next year with regards to their accounts for this year, possibly. But obviously, they've got the whole thing going on at Derby County at the minute, and that just seems to be getting worse by the day. What's your take on all this financial fair play business at the minute?
I think I'd take whatever, any articles that mention Middlesbrough and financial fair play, I'd take it with a pinch of salt, to be honest, because I think there's mud getting slung all over the shop. You know, there's national journalists involved now. There's petitions going to Parliament that Derby are trying to pull together to get 100,000 signatures. The EFL's corrupt, you know. There's photographs of Derby fans taking less than attractive photographs of Steve Gibson to the stand and writing smoggy this, that and the other on it. And, you know, so there's some real bitterness out there. So I think you've got to take it with a pinch of salt and just rely on the fact we've never been penalised yet. And would Steve Gibson stand up there and start calling out other clubs if he knew he was in a difficult place? And I don't think he's that stupid. So that said, I do have some sympathy with Derby because I think, you know, they've been penalised for the financial irregularity. You know, it's not their fault the chairman was corrupt. Sorry, allegedly. It's not their fault that the club went into administration. Those points have been deducted. And that should be the end of it, you know. And I know Boro have got legal claims and all that going on and bits and bobs. And again, there's all sorts of rumours about that and how much are we claiming. But so I'd take it with a pinch of salt in terms of Boro. But in terms of Derby, I think it does need to get resolved, doesn't it? Because it can't go on. It isn't right that clubs in administration got 3 buyers interested and can't get out of it. And, you know, it does look a bit dodgy when the two of the 3 Football League board members, one's Neil Bowser and the other one's Nottingham Forest chief exec. So it doesn't look that great, does it, when you're a Derby fan? You're sat there wondering why the EFL are trying to hammer you, you know? So, it's all getting a bit messy, and the Football League needs to sort it out. And I'd much prefer to go to some kind of wage cap or something like that, like the lower leagues. It's just much simpler than having to have arguments and fans, clubs getting pulled apart over provisions for stadium sales, and it's just crazy. But, you know, it's too complicated. It needs sorting.
Agree, 100% agree. Well, let's move on to matters on the pitch, lads. Jacob, Reading it was on Saturday, and what eventually turned into an unforgettable afternoon. But Aaron Connolly, one of the players that we've brought in, made his debut. And the opening half, I thought we were in control, didn't look in any sort of danger, without really overly threatening Reading. What do you put it down to? What did you make of that first half in general on Saturday, Jacob?
I like to see us have that much possession. It was difficult to unlock the door because they were counter-attacking. I thought we could have been a little bit more progressive with our midfield play. I was impressed enough with Connolly. You know, he hasn't played too much football, and I think what he did do, he did well. You can tell he's quite a zippy striker. When he cut inside and blasted that with his right foot, by the way, that wasn't far off that. If you watch it back, that was quite close, actually. I think it'll cause problem for defenders. That for me, that's a decent enough debut. That and also, I know you're on about the first half, but quickly to interject a little bit, I was impressed with a little bit with seeing Balogun. You just know when he gets the ball at his feet, he's quite flying. I think he's going to do very, very well, actually. But yeah, it's one of those games. You control possession, you can't unlock the door, and you end up, you know, thinking to yourself, is it going to be one of those where they sit back and they get a corner and Andy Carroll nods it in and it's 1-0 Reading? So when he pops up, and the first time he peeled off Dale Fry, he pops the goal, and you think, it's that bloody day, isn't it? It's that Andy Carroll. And he celebrated where I sit. If I'd have had a quid coin on me, I'd have pulled it off his head.
Out.
But, yeah. But yeah, it's one of those. So you've got to look at it and think, we completely controlled it, but we didn't unlock the door.
Yeah. Daniel Joseph's got in touch, and Daniel, I would agree there. I thought the break and COVID's still making us look a little bit leggy and a little bit off the pace. And as you said, Andy Carroll does what Andy Carroll does, really, Liam. And I mean, one or two people had a go at Joe Lumley for that goal. Would you say that's a bit harsh on Joe Lumley?
I think so. I think it's been proven, as a lot bigger and better clubs than us have tried to do with Andy Carroll, and a lot more expensive defenders have tried to manage him in the Premier League, and it hasn't come off. So yeah, there is something about that bloke. It seems with headers that you can't. There's only so much you can do with them, isn't there? Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a bit unfair on the keeper. I look back and yeah, he could have a go at his position in this, that, and the other, but I think it was written in the stars, wasn't it? He was going to score. The question was, are we going to get an equaliser? And I didn't see a win, definitely. And I thought, it wasn't one for the scrapbook, was it? To be honest, it was what I was thinking about 50 minutes in. I thought it's got draw written all over, or as you said, Jake, they're going to. Andy Carroll's going to go up the other end, plonk one in the 85th minute, and we're going to go away gutted. That's kind of typical Boro territory, isn't it? We were heading towards. But I think that's what's different about this side, isn't it? We get an equaliser, and you're thinking, all right, okay, well, he's got something about him, this manager, and we're getting an equaliser, and then to get on the winner, I think that definitely shows that we're in stiff and gravy at the moment, isn't it, with this guy? And yeah, definitely, there's something about it, isn't there? Something about this season that I think it bodes well for the second half, definitely, if we can turn that match like that around. And 4 strikers on the pitch, well, for that, so Steve McLaren territory, that, isn't it?
I'm just going to get onto that, Jacob. I mean, I thought the crowd, I know we've said about 1 or 2 people getting on Tav's back and some of the other players, but I thought by and large, and particularly the South Stand, I've got to say, they just kept on singing and singing and singing all through the game, and they stayed with the players. They kept encouraging them. But Chris Wilder's substitutions, I mean, what did you make of his changes? Were you a bit taken aback by some of them, or do you think, yeah, I can see what he's doing here?
Firstly, one comment you made there, the South Stand were immense. They sang through Andy Carroll scoring and carried on singing. So I don't sit in the South Stand. I sit with my son in the family stand, but hats off to all them that were singing. With regards to Wilder's substitutions, interestingly, before he had the signings, he said, we're missing a strong bench that I can make some impact subs from. Now, sometimes you can hear that and go, oh, you're saying that because we lost 1-0 or we got a draw out of it. But we were losing 1-0 and quite a maverick of substitutions. One came on, then another came on. Then Coburn comes with the armband. I was thinking, are we going to bring Andy Campbell back and he's going to run on as well? But it worked, didn't it? And look where Crooksy popped up for both goals as well. Centre, right down the centre, whipping the balls in. And by the way, his first header was brilliant. That's not an easy header. And as the Rotherham fans were saying, he's a big lad, but he's not known for his heading. And we know the same. He's not, is he? Although he has scored a few headed goals, but he doesn't win that many in the air, like for a big lad. But that was a brilliant header, that. So hopefully we can see some more from him. But yeah.
And the ball in as well. You've got to mention the ball in as well, because it was a great ball. When you think it's come straight back out to him from the corner, and he came back out, and first time he put it back in, didn't he?
Is that Tav?
It might have been, mate.
Oh, I don't know.
It was funny though, wasn't it, with those subs? Because I remember at the time of those subs, you're thinking, all right, okay, bring a striker on, looking a bit leggy. Connolly's not set the world alight, you wouldn't expect him to. Your first match, this, that, and the other. They kept bringing strikers on. You kind of think to yourself, do we not need to bring some midfielders on here? Is that not where we need to freshen up? Why do we keep, that's not where the issue is. The issue is midfield. We're getting, but, fair play to him. He obviously knows what he's doing, doesn't he? Unlike us, or me. But yeah.
What do you make of that, Liam? Paul Mack's been in touch. Hope you're well, Paul. And he said, I thought Piero deserved a chance, but I guess can't complain as we got the win. Do you think that Wilder isn't a fan of Piero?
I can't. All I'd say with that is that if you look at the players, look at when he's brought signings in and what have you. He's not one of these managers like Warnock, is he, who says, he needs 6.5 months to settle in and, all that stuff and buy a house and whatever. He chucks him in, chuck Connolly in, he chuck Balogun. So you'd have thought, if he's on the training ground and he saw something in Piero, he'd put him in, wouldn't he? If he thought he was good enough, he'd put him in. There would be no two ways about it. He'd have him on the bench and doing bit parts here and there. So there's something going on. What I haven't heard him say is that he's up for sale or he's available or, given he's clearing out other players he doesn't think fit the bill. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I don't know if he just thinks he's not match sharp or he's got a bit of development to do or, but there's something.
He played for the under-23s yesterday.
He did, yeah.
Sunderland, yeah.
But he wasn't the standout player in that, though, was he?
No, well, that was young Cav there, who might be the centre forward that we've been yearning for years. Home developed centre forward, or maybe Coburn might be the one, but Cav could be the next big thing off the production line. But
can I say on Piero there? I think we've got to understand as well. He's been a bit stop-start through injury, and also for me, the midfield three have been the turning cog of what's really turned over these wins. I think they've been brilliant, like pretty much every game. And Wilder said it himself, the midfield three have been so solid that we're not a team that wins 3-0. So, you don't want to change your midfield when it's as solid as it is if you're 1-0 up. Because one out of there and one stepping inside when he should be outside, just a second, then all of a sudden someone's bombing up the wing and it's 1-1. So I can understand why Piero's probably got it as hard as anyone in terms of he needs to get fit again and sharp, which is probably why he's in the 23s, but also he's a victim of the fact that he's trying to get in a midfield, which is arguably, wait for this, the best midfield in the Championship.
Oh,
Who's better than Matt Crooks?
That's some statement, that, mate.
Who's better than Crooksy? Name one.
Midfielder?
Yeah.
Well, you might come up against one next Monday night. Joe Rothwell, Blackburn. Bang average. Oh, I hope that doesn't come back to haunt us, that, mate.
I didn't hear it.
You didn't hear it. Didn't hear nothing.
Well, I'm going to say, as a Rothwell, if I think he scored 4 this season, as I understand. Right. Yeah, he scored 4. Crooksy's banged 6 in and got 5 assists. I rest my case.
Fair point. Well, it'll be an interesting duel between them two next week. But going back to Saturday, Jacob, I mean, in fairness, and we saw it coming, we got the equaliser, and there was no sense of settling for a point there, was there?
Say that again, sorry?
There was no sense of settling for a point, was there? We got level, and it wasn't a case of, all right, we've worked hard, we've got the point. We'll see if we can sneak a second one, but it was all out. Coburn came on, and it was all out for getting the 3 points, wasn't it? Yeah.
And what did Wilder say? I won't go out the back door, I'll go out the front door. That's what he said. We love that, though, don't we? Yeah. We love that. That's what you want to see that as a fan. And without throwing any other previous managers under the bus, we haven't had that. We haven't. It was lackluster, and it was 1-0 there. There might have been another striker poured on, but it wouldn't have been. I mean, when he brought all the forwards on, the whole system stepped up 20 yards. Yeah. And it was all about getting it out to the wings, like, get it out there and let it be delivered, get it out. So yeah, positive play, positive substitutions. And he's that manager. He wants to outscore the other team, and he'll put the players next on the line to do it.
Yeah. And Liam, I guess Reading must be just sick of the sight of the Riverside and last minute goals, because there was echoes of the Adam Forshaw 2016 moment there again on Saturday, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Reading fan, you're just sick as a chip at the moment, I imagine, having getting spanked and then thinking, and I think one thing about the Reading performance, we're going to get a lot more of that, I think. It reminded me of, like, that's the seasons when Crank was in charge. You're going to get lots of clubs who have no intention whatsoever of being ambitious, taking us on, and it'll work again. It wouldn't surprise me, games like Blackburn next year, it'll be a cracking match, I reckon, because we'll both be going at it, we'll both be attacking. And you never know, might pull someone off, but hopefully we do. But there's going to be lots of games, and they're going to be frustrating as hell. And we're just going to have to live with it and accept it, and not get on people's backs like Tav, who are trying to unlock them and do something a bit different, be a bit play the dangerous pass rather than the safe one. And that's where it's going to be, unfortunately. It's going to drive me crackers because, the time wasting comes out 10 minutes in, doesn't it, when you're playing Coventry or whatever. So I think we're just going to have to get used to that as a fan base and stick behind him.
And Jacob, again, it's not so long ago, and it's not having a dig at the previous regime, but it wasn't so long ago that second halves were a big issue with the Boro. We had leads, couldn't hold on to them, losing games, dropping points left, right and centre. All of a sudden, now we're the team to be feared in the second half and in the final 10 minutes of games. What do you put that transformation down
to? When you're part of a project that is so focused. So we've got from the director of football, from the chairman, we've got to give Gibbo a pat on the back, to the director of football, to the manager. They're extremely focused, and they have a system. And when you buy into that system as a collective, as a team, you work your ass off to make sure it pulls off. So because I think we now have the confidence and the belief, because of the system that they've brought to the club, they will fight tooth and nail we've seen it. Well, look at it. And also they believe in each other. You're bringing subs on like Balogun, like give him the ball, let him do something. You've got really good players on the pitch like Tav, like Crooks. You've got Sporer in there, who's an international. So if I was playing in that side and we were 1-0 down or whatever, and it was 10 minutes to go, I'd be thinking, no, we can get back in this. We just need that little bit. So I think largely due to from Gibbo down and to the system that we've got and to the players buying in the system, and obviously we've got a lot to thank for Wilder for that, and hopefully Wilder's here for a good while. No pun intended.
I think all Boro fans will echo those sentiments, Jacob. Well, this time next week, Liam, will be less than an hour away from kick-off in Boro's next game. Huge clash with Blackburn Rovers, who were unbeaten in 10 games in the league. Has their progress surprised you this season?
Yeah, that's an understatement. I think I keep waiting for the wheels to come off it. I'm thinking it took me back to when Mogger was in charge when we had that season. Project Emnes was in full flight, if you remember.
Yeah.
And we were up the top of the table and we're daring to dream and all that, and then it all started petering away, didn't it? Just after Christmas, I can't remember. So I keep thinking, Mogger's done this before, and then I think, well, it could be like West Brom, couldn't it? It could be going for it, and they're showing no signs at all, are they, of dropping off or weakening, and it should be an absolute cracker because I was looking at the form the last 6. We've both picked up exactly the same number of points over the last 6. We're both looking at 5 wins and a draw. Theirs came more recently, didn't it, against Huddersfield. And I don't know which way it'll go, to be honest with you. I hope it's just going to be a great game. And either way, because I think either club's not going to get too disheartened if they lose out on the day, because you're a good side. You've come up against a good side and you get back to it after it. But I think it's going to be a cracker.
Yeah. And Jacob, obviously Ben Brereton Diaz gets a lot of the headlines there, and he's got 20 goals this season for Blackburn. But you don't get the 3rd position in the Championship at this stage of the season because of one man, do you?
Well, he's not Slovenian, is he? I said he's not Slovenian, is he?
No, he's definitely not Slovenian.
Look, he's had a cracking season, hasn't he? He's a brilliant. But the thing is, it's Blackburn's system's really good. I love Mogger as well. The system's good. They're like was just said there by Liam. They're not slacking. They look really, really strong. But they're coming against a very strong side as well. So, looking at the game, I personally think quite a few of the games it'll be won in midfield. So, Cruxy's firing, we should be all right. But I think it's a game that neither side want to get turned over. If, for example, if Boro walk in and batter them 3-0 at Ewood Park, they're going to be like, oh, take a big gulp. Like maybe the wheels are coming off. Are we as good as we thought we were? Vice versa. If we get tonked by them, it might give us a little bit of a knockdown and a humbling. If it's a slide 1-0 either way, then and both teams are at each other, like Liam said, no one will be too disheartened by it. But I'm quietly confident, I'm quietly confident in our ability, and I think that as long as Isaiah Jones is on the pitch, you just don't know what's going to happen.
Liam, realistically, we've talked about this before at matches and stuff, and obviously when Chris Wilder took over in November, it was like, well, let's see where we are at the end of the season, which is probably bedding things in ready for a promotion push next season. Then we've had this unbelievable run in the last 7 games, and people are now saying, I've heard 1 or 2 people say, I've cancelled my reservations for the hotel for the playoff final weekend at Wembley because we're going up top 2 now. It's absolutely crazy how it's all changed. Realistically, what do you think our target should be for this season?
Playoffs. And I'd have said before, and I think that was the target for Warnock, wasn't it? Let's be honest. This season, obviously. I'd have said top half, realistically, is probably where we would have ended up before Warnock left. Top 10, top 12, something like that. Especially with these signings now, I think he needs to make the playoffs. That's clearly the objective, isn't it? I mean, top 2, and to get in the playoffs, you can't just we'll try hard in these matches to get enough points for the playoffs. We won't go crazy and go for the top 2. You've got to go for it. So you never know, do you? Blackburn are proven you can make a run in there. My only thing with the top 2 is I just can't. I think we're way behind someone like Fulham, in terms of the quality of Mitrovic and people like that, and we're away off that. So at least one of those places is going to be taken. I think Bournemouth are clearly an established side, lots of good players, good manager. So I think playoffs is. But I'd be put like this. I'd be really disappointed now if we didn't make the playoffs, because I do not believe there are better clubs than that many clubs better than us in this league. if we're outside of that, then I think Wilder himself would admit that something's gone horrendously wrong for outside that.
I'd largely agree with that. I think looking though at, for example, you've got Bournemouth and Blackburn. I mean, we didn't have the greatest start to the season, but I wouldn't put them higher than Middlesbrough in terms of attributes as a team. I mean, Blackburn, we'll see, won't we? We'll see when they come against each other. But Bournemouth, certainly not. But have you noticed this season, there's like, I'm having a look at the league now, there's 8 or 9, 10 from Nottingham Forest. They're not losing many. Like, no. It's very tight up there. Forest lost those 2, but they won again, didn't they? Stoke City won 2-0.
Yesterday at all.
Right. Huddersfield. I'm watching Huddersfield.
I'm surprised they're still kicking about, yeah.
They got a draw with Blackburn, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they beat Forest. The thing is, I think Huddersfield will drop off. I don't think they've got enough quality. I think Huddersfield will probably finish 10th, something like that. West Brom, I think they might drop out of it. I think Forest are the ones that will kick on with Middlesbrough, personally. Forest have got enough quality in the side. They'll probably bring a couple more players in as well. I think that Davis, although he's been a bit of a flop everywhere he's been, he probably works in that side to bring the other attacking players into play. But it is, if you look at it, it's the 10 teams there. Coventry, I'm just looking at Coventry now. They're 2 games behind us, but if they won both the games, then they'd be above us.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's all to play for. But then I also agree with what Liam said. Fulham have got the style of play where they'll probably win the league. I'd still say Middlesbrough against Fulham. I'd still back us, but I don't know whether I'm being through rose-tinted glasses here. I know they score a lot of goals, but I think against majority of the teams, they'll walk through. And what did they score? 7 the game before, the 6 the game after, or whatever. Yeah. But you've got Bournemouth, Blackburn, QPR, West Brom, Middlesbrough. None of those I look at and say, well, QPR maybe, actually.
QPR, I think, are a decent team this year, aren't they?
Yeah. But, I think that realistically, I want the playoffs. I'd be gutted if we missed out. But I think we wouldn't be so far off. If you've got 20 quid, I wouldn't stop putting us on like a top 2.
Ooh. Well, while you're in the betting mood, Jacob, you can have first dibs on predictions for next Monday night's game at Ewood Park. What do you think the score's going to be?
Just after I've said that?
Yeah. Set you up, mate.
Oh, gosh. It's a tough one, this. Is Danny Ayala going to play, or has he got a dodgy ankle like most weeks?
I think he'll play.
Will he?
Yeah.
1-0 Boro.
Ooh, sneaky 1-0. Liam, what you going
2-2.
for?
2-2, but it'll feel like a win because we're going to score in about the 89th minute when they think they're home and dry.
There's a lot of optimism from Boro fans out there. Damon's gone a 2-1 Boro win. Colin Fry, it's gone 2-0. I hope that's Boro, not Blackburn. Daniel Cheney's got a 1-0 Boro win. So, yeah, lots to look forward to. That's a big game next Monday night. Unfortunately, everyone, we've run out of time for this week's show. Hope you've enjoyed the programme. Thanks for watching and for all your contributions. My thanks most of all go to Jacob and Liam for appearing on the show. Thanks very much, lads.
Very welcome, mate.
Enjoyed having you on. Hope to see you both again soon. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe to Boro Fan TV and check out the Boro Fan TV Twitter page. It's got some fantastic stuff on there. You won't be disappointed. I promise you, it's well worth a look at. Just another thing I want to mention before we go, I'm going to put an address on at the end of the comments tonight. A team of lads from Men's Health are going to be walking over 130 miles in 5 days in April. They're going to be visiting 17 football grounds. They're doing the walk in awareness for men's mental health. It's in the memory of Harvey McWilliams, who sadly passed away last year. So they're going to do that walk in April. I'm going to put a link to that page if you want to find out anything more about it. So, yeah, that's a cause well worth getting on board with for those lads on their walk in April. We'll be back next Tuesday next week, though, guys. Won't be Monday because obviously the match is on next week. So we'll be back next Tuesday, sift through the Blackburn match and obviously look at the latest transfer news and preview another big game at the weekend after that when we take on Coventry at the Riverside. So until then, from us all here at Boro Fan TV, take care, stay safe, have a good week, and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.